This episode of the Better Every Shift podcast is sponsored by The Fire Store. Learn more about getting the gear you need at prices you can afford by visiting thefirestore.com.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Better Every Shift podcast. I'm your host today. I'm not driving. I'm just here to ask the questions and learn the knowledge just like you, cuz today I got a very special guest, a friend of mine. I consider him a mentor that I've known for almost 10 years, who is just recognized with a very prestigious award we're going to get into. I'd love to welcome, and I'm very happy that you're here. It's Deputy Chief Kevin Quinn from the NVFC. Welcome, Chief. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, Zam. Fantastic, and it's an honor to be here on this podcast with Better Every Shift for sure. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate that. We're actually award winning now. We've won an IEFF Media Award, and so I guess things are looking up for us. I'm trying to do the best I can. I'm trying to get a little better every single show, as I like to say. But you've been getting better with NVFC for over 50 years, I believe, or 40 years with them, 4 different decades
Over
with
40
them.
years, 42 years with the NVFC. And
In
the board.
your career, you've been in the fire service for over 50 years. And again, we just mentioned the 4 decades as with NVFC board of directors. You've headed that organization. You've also served as a volunteer and been the chief of the Union Fire District in South Kingston, Rhode Island. And
Deputy,
is that right?
Deputy Chief. I'm still
Deputy
involved with the Union Fire District as well.
Okay.
As a member of Station 3. So
50 years. Which is really, really incredible. And one of the things that I love about you, and which we kind of started bonding about, was your dedication to safety, your dedication to health, and just kind of I've like looking at the fire service a little bit differently. I mean, you look at it through the volunteer lens, and you've been so active in just being, like I said, an advocate for safety. You are an advocate for the National Fallen Firefighters Foundation, Everyone Goes Home program. We've been on some really cool teams and some groups where we worked on some special projects on health and wellness with the FRCE. So all of that stuff um, makes you a very, very qualified, good candidate and very deserving of the 2025 CFSI Motorola Solutions Mason Lankford Fire Service Leadership Award, which you just got this last month at the CFSI Symposium. And that's where I saw you. And I'm like, we got to get you on the program. We got to talk about that. Congratulations, by the way.
thank you.
It's very well deserved. But take me through, first of all, like when they said, "Hey, we're gonna you are the recipient for the Mason Lankford Fire Service Leadership Award this year." What did you think?
Well, I actually was with a lot of fire service leaders in Key West, Florida at the Truman Symposium. And I had no idea that my name was up for that nomination. And Shane Ray with the National Fire Sprinkler Association, who is on the board with the CFSI, made an announcement at that symposium that, I'm sitting there, and I think a few people, probably many people in the room, knew that I was getting this announcement, but I was floored by it because I'm not one to look for accolades and recognition. I like to just do the work and look for the outcomes. And like you said, health and safety is critical to me. And the Mason Lankford Fire Service Leadership Award is all about health and safety. So it matched well, and I'm honored and humbled that I was recognized at that level. And it's a very prestigious award. When you look at the 25 names that are on there, there are so many legends in the fire service over the years. And it's impressive.
Well, you're among them, my friend. You're among those legends. And the ceremony itself, you got to start the entire Congressional Fire Service. We do the gala event, the meal where It's about, I think it's 1,500 of very prestigious people. A lot of the leaders in the fire service, they're going back and forth to the White House and really working on trying to get policies, which you are have been at the forefront of through your career also. But I want to just talk about, all right, you're a very family oriented guy. How did you, if you can recap for everybody, we got to talk about how you got your grandkids involved in this.
Well, I reached out to the CFSI CEO, Bill Webb, and I said, listen, is there any way that I could get my two grandkids and I to lead the Pledge of Allegiance? And he said to me, well, Kevin, no, I've got John Donnelly, the chief of DC Fire Rescue. He does that for me. But then the accident happened, the helicopter, the plane crash.
Yep.
And so Bill changed to have Chief Donnelly be the keynote speaker. And then he called me up or emailed me and said, listen, you're still in for your kids, your grandkids and you. So I called I had my son on standby. Then I told him it's out. We got trumped by Chief Donnelly.
Yeah.
He was fine with that. But then I called him back and said, listen, we're back on the stage if the kids are willing to do it. So they practice a little bit. I'll tell you a funny story about that. We're behind stage prior to the ceremony kicking off, practicing, going through the rehearsal with the whole cruise. And I had a couple of codes for them. One was I tapped them both on the shoulders so they'd put their hand on their heart. That was the first signal. Then I told them, all right, I'll tap you again for when we start with I Pledge Allegiance. And so my hand's on my heart. I can't tap. Well, I made a bad call. It was not a very good reference. So I started and the kids jumped in
Yep.
right away, and it went off without a hitch.
It-
But afterwards, my oldest granddaughter, she said, Susanna said, Da, that's what they call me, Da, Da, you didn't tap us the second time. I said, I know, I'm sorry. And then my youngest, the 5-year-old Sterling, says, Da, you screwed up. I said, I did. But it was a thrill to do.
But you know what? That's great leadership, right? Like you gave the kids the resources they need,
Yeah.
the training that they needed,
Oh,
and
yeah.
when they needed to come through, they didn't need you to prompt them. They knew what they needed to do. Because I it was funny because you started off and then all of a sudden they just took over.
Yeah.
And
Oh, yeah.
it was great, and there wasn't really a dry eye. Everybody that at my table was going, "This is
Well,
great," and
when you look at your podcast, you talk about better every shift. That was a training module that we had. And I kind of screwed up as the teacher, but I'm a retired school teacher. So I'm always about teaching and learning. Okay. And we were able to go through that process. And even with some glitches, we were able to still adopt and overcome. So
yep,
I
and
was
be
very proud.
very successful because I remembered it, right? Like I was like, "Oh, I got to ask him about this," getting the family involved, and you
Oh,
know, and we encountered each other in the lobby earlier that day, and and you've been doing this for 50 years, and you said, I'm not done yet. I have a mission, and I wanted to really highlight that a little bit because I think it talks a lot about your character.
appreciate that. Yeah. I announced I was at a crossroads. I'm actually 49 years in the fire service,
Okay.
not 50. But when you're in a business or our industry for so long, you hit a crossroads as to when do you move on to your next chapter? And so my crossroad was with the National Fallen Firefighters Foundation. My board term ends December of 2025. So I was like, is that my end? But then I talked to my leadership at the NVFC and the chairman Hirsch, and we decided that because he's still working full time, he is an attorney and a judge, and he does taxes for all the farmers in Kansas. So
He's a busy guy. Yeah.
he doesn't have the time to be out there. And I'm retired, so I can be out there. So with his advice, we decided that I would take on one more term at the NFFF, and that's a 6-year term. It's a long commitment.
It is.
So in that 6 years, I'll be running up to 77 years old at that point. and that's going to be the end of my fire service career. But in the 6 years, I have one goal left, and that is to work with the fire service organizations and the U.S. Fire Administrator Strategic Plan to get us, the fire service. We need to have national standards adopted for cancer screenings for firefighters. We don't have any, and we need to look at that, and we need to get some research to justify that, and we need to look at funding to make that happen. And I think the insurance companies are a critical piece to that discussion, because those folks, it's a lot cheaper for early intervention, early action, than to pay out at the other end on the health, consequences of cancer in a firefighter. So that's my one goal, and I've got like 6 years to make it happen, and I'm going to push hard for that. So that's really the push that I believe, and Zam, with health and safety and all of the personally that everyone on your podcast knows someone that's impacted or themselves that are impacted by cancer in the fire service. And with the IARC designation that firefighting is a group 1 carcinogen, that has gotten a lot more attention of the researchers, the scientists, and the communities. We just have to look at the funding. It has to make sense, and it has to be equated into the entire synopsis of making this happen. So I'm willing to put the work in, and I know there's a lot of people out there that are working hard on this, but we have to, and if I could, I'm going to give you, my wife's a nurse, and we've been married for 49 years. When I turned 45, she said, Kevin, you need to consider a colonoscopy. So I said, okay. And for about 7 years.
It was because that was at your age. It wasn't because you're full of crap.
Correct.
Or maybe a little bit of both, right? I had to throw that joke in there. It's because you said that to me. You're like, well, she knows I'm full of crap. So right. But
for 7 years, I'm not every year, but periodically she'd say, Kevin, you need to go get that test done. And so I put it off because I was, I didn't realize the importance of it until Billy Goldfeder wrote a column, and I read that column about the importance of a colonoscopy. Because Billy wrote it, I related to it, and I said to my wife, Leanne, how do I get that colonoscopy? Well, she thought she won after 6 or 7 years, but I was 51 when I had my first colonoscopy. I was full of polyps, and I was on the 1-year plan, and then the 2-year plan, and now I'm on the 5-year plan. So fortunately, I had it done, but if I had not had it done, who knows where that was going. So I'm all about screenings right now, and that's my last goal in the fire service, because I believe wholeheartedly that we have to put the time and effort in and find fair ways to fund it.
Yeah. And there's only right now, you and I talked about this too. There's a ton of recommendations, kind of different recommendations, different blood tests, but there really isn't. And I think what you're trying to do is let's hone in on what are, good, better, best, right? And what do we have to do?
Too much confusion out there. Fire departments, firefighters, I think we could all relate to, your skin cancer, getting tested for that, and the colonoscopies. But when you look at the impact of cancer in the fire service and how it affects our personnel, we need to look at what else do we need to have? What is that recommended at these certain ages? And, it may be because we're in a higher predominance of cancer. Maybe we need to move that colonoscopy back, to 40 years old. Or I don't know where the answers are, but we need to look at this collectively with all the stakeholders involved and try to find something that clarifies for the everyday firefighter, for the department, for the cities and towns, so that we can move forward and reduce the impact and the lives lost to cancer in the fire service. And that's the cost factors of that alone. We need to put the time in to do that.
Well, and the other part of that too, then with this research and with some, very solid evidence behind all that, then it's easier for me to go to my general practitioner and say, look, this is why right? Well, you're 40, you're not 50. No. I'm a firefighter. Yeah. That justifies the cost of those insurance companies. Because how many times have we heard that? Right. Well,
you're at higher risk. You are at higher risk. And the evidence has to show that.
Yes.
And we don't have current evidence. Our evidence is lacking in terms of the years that we've been pushing this, and we haven't. We have to build that evidence. That's why, you know, I think the cancer in the fire service has brought unity between the fire service and our researchers and scientists. We depend so much on data now, and the research that's out there and the empirical evidence, and that's what we have to have, because you can't go to your city managers unless you have empirical evidence that shows that this is a cause and effect operation.
Yeah. Well, that's the National Cancer Registry, right? Like we need people to
Yeah.
take 15 minutes and register. It's not because we're gonna take any of your personal health information. It's so we need to know these numbers, right? For data, for research, for funding. We
I
need to
think
help ourselves, right?
we put the hand out and we slap the hand of every firefighter that has not registered. And the goal for the National Cancer Registry was 200,000 members registered in the first few years. Well, it's approaching 3 years. In April, it'll be 3 years. And I think there's 21,000 and change. It's a long way from 200,000. So your listeners, yeah, registering is going to help you and those that fall behind you. There, it's totally confidential. So I'm a big proponent for the National Cancer Registry, and take that. It's not 15 minutes, it's about 32 minutes, but take
Yeah.
that 32 minutes, get yourself registered, whether you're active firefighter, retired firefighter. You don't have to have cancer prognosis. It's all of us, no matter where you are, what you do. So again, a great shout out for that. And I hope that we pick up a few more thousand just by this podcast on that alone.
Yeah, and we hope to also on the Better Every Shift actually spotlight that a little bit more. And I know even talking with some of the behind the scenes with the Firefighter Cancer Registry, I know that they're looking at streamlining some of the survey, and so they're really trying to work with the feedback that they've gotten. But the point remains, right? If you're a true brother, true sister of the fire service, you need to do something like this because it's going to benefit all of us down the road.
Yeah, it really is essential that we get those numbers up, because it's more of a laughing stock. And when those that fund it and those that look at, we pushed hard to get it through Congress, and then Congress, they like to say, well, you know, what are your numbers? They're all about data too, and
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
kind of hard to say, well, we got 21,000, 22,000, and they said, well, you were going for 200,000, so you're a long way off. So come
Yeah.
on, troops, get out there and register.
And and get your annual medicals and get your cancer screens and really start taking care of yourself, because it's not just about you, it's about the person standing next to you, in front of you, behind you, right? And
Yeah,
um, and shifting, your mission now, and that's all part of, the NVFC, right? That they're
right.
dedicated to health and wellness. So let's talk about how you got involved with them. I mean, their mission and your mission kind of lined up, but this is 40 years ago, I believe, right?
Yeah. It's an interesting story. I'm a retired school teacher, so um, I had a one of the first laptop computers ever built back
Was
in
it
the.
like a suitcase?
It was a big bad boy, yeah,
Yeah.
and I still have it. It was heavy. It was about 40 pounds, and I didn't have the power of anything, but I did have that, and I because I was a school teacher and I had a laptop computer. When I first joined my fire company in 49 years ago, I joined in October, and the elections for the offices, the company offices, and the line president and secretary were that in January. So 3 months into it, they elect me as the secretary treasurer. So I'm in charge of all their money and everything else. They've known me for 3 months because I was a school teacher and I had a laptop computer.
Yep.
Well, a year later, my captain says to me, Kevin, I want you to come to a dinner meeting over in Newport, Rhode Island. It's a free dinner, and it's with the fire service. So I go over 2 bridges. I come back, and I'm the secretary treasurer for the Rhode Island State Firemen's. It was Firemen's League back then. It's Firefighters League now. But I'm the secretary treasurer for the state now. 1 year into this business, a couple of years later, 3 years later, um, the NVFC is formed and Rhode Island joins. And because I'm an officer at the state level, they put me on the board of directors for the National Volunteer Fire Council. I'm a young kid. No, I didn't even know, Sam, what NVFC stood for. Okay, but I'm elected as a board of director for the organization, and I've been on the board ever since. Now, I retired from teaching in 2007, and I went full bore with the mission of NVFC, the National Volunteer Fire Council, and all of the work, the great work we've done over the years to augment and supplement and to provide initiatives for the volunteer. We are the voice of the volunteer, and I have been a strong proponent for that, and had my, obviously accessed any kind of opportunities we have to promote and protect the volunteers as well. On top of that, I also, in the past, say 10 years, I've been working with the entire fire service. And I think that's been a huge difference maker for me, because we have to work in unity when we talk about getting bills passed in Congress that are going to impact, or some of the things we were just talking about with cancer screenings. If we're not, if we're, and I've been in too many senators or congressmen's office where they say to you as a leader, when you, the fire service, get on the same page, then come and talk to us, because you got one organization saying this, one organization saying that. Well, we have to look at our common ground, and we have to work towards that common ground. And I told Edzo Kelly the other night, you probably heard me say,
Yep.
our work is not done. In fact, it's just begun, because we have many hurdles that are ahead of us. And one being, and I know Ed Kelly, the general president of the IFF, is all about pushing for reduction in cancer. So we are on the same page, and we are brothers and sisters, and we have to find the unity. So that's kind of like how I pushed through, became involved with the NVFC, and then grew and watched us grow with the just the initiatives, resources, and the benefits that we have as an organization. I'm proud to say that I'm involved with them. I'm proud to say that I've been able to help lead the organization to new heights, for sure.
Well, you hit it right on the head, because when they showed a video when you were accepting the CFSI Motorola Solutions Mason Lankford Fire Service Leadership Award. They showed a video clip, and on that video clip, I know that there was IFF President Ed Kelly. There were numerous other organizations represented, and for the IFF to endorse someone from the NVFC, I think that says
It's
how special
historic.
you are,
It
right?
is. I've been around long enough to be on the other end of that, where battles occurred and going head to head with the organizations. But I think we're finding the common ground. We're not going to agree on everything. There are going to be polarized on certain items, but the common ground, when it's there, we need to take advantage of that. And I think that's what we've realized. And I have to credit Dr. Lori Moore Merrill and her leadership as the U.S. Fire Administrator, with her bringing together all the fire service organizations. She really was the proponent for that, and really started the momentum. And Lori's gone, yes, but we still need to keep the momentum going. So
Yeah.
I
Well,
appreciate that.
she's still here. She's still pushing through other organizations. I think we're going to see I hope to continue to see her, because you're right. She always
We
preached.
will. We just don't know where. She
Yeah.
might not even know where. I'm not sure, but
Well, who knows? I'm invited her on. Hopefully, we'll get her on the podcast. Maybe she'll take my job for all I know. She's probably better at it than I would be. But
she could be.
yeah, she could be. It's right. But
She's a she's
it,
a trooper. She's done so much for the fire service.
as of
And
you, my friend, as of you. And a lot of times we get on the program, we really try to, with the Better Every Shift, it doesn't matter if you're volunteer or if you're career. I've started as a volunteer, and my hat's off to the volunteer fire service and firefighters, because you're juggling all of these different responsibilities, and still having to stay up to date on a lot of education, because the fire isn't any different in a volunteer area as it is in a career area. The fire is still hot. It's still dangerous. It still burns, right? Like, over the years, you said you had to fight kind of to get that recognition.
well, I don't like the term volley. To me,
Yeah.
it's grading, and those. decades ago, we were a second-class citizen in terms of in the fire service. There were a number of folks that felt that we were not qualified to do the job that we do. Um, Contrary to those beliefs, I I have dedicated my entire life to the fire service, but I also dedicated 1 or 2 times a week training. And I'm talking decades and decades and decades of training and staying informed on new technologies. And the NVFC has some of the best training for lithium-ion batteries, the EVs, a hazmat response. I- and I was one as an educator. I always pushed my recruits, anybody that came to join in our station or in the department, always pushed to take advantage of every training you can get. And I tell you, I did everything I could throughout my years of service and took every course everywhere, which is time away from home, time away from the family,
Mhm.
because you're working your day job and then you've got all this other stuff that you fit in. But I did that. And I did that purposely, so because I believe in lifelong learning. And the only two things I shunned away from was bomb technician. When there was an opportunity for that, I said, I'm all set on that. The other one was hazmat technician. I shunned away from that because I really wasn't into that. However, when I made deputy, the chief assigned me operations
Hazmat.
chief hazmat. So at the time in Rhode Island, it was a 140-hour course for hazmat. States are all a little different, but 140 hours plus a 40-hour annual refresher course for our hazmats back in Rhode Island. And so I really, when I do take something, Sam, I take it fully. And I got into the hazmat, and I ended up leading a hazmat team in Rhode Island, and really enjoyed that time. And so, but those are the two I shunned away. Otherwise, I took every diver, everything that there's a certification for, and we offered a lot of training in my department. So I had taken every certification, and I am a proponent for that for our members coming into the department. It's all free training. Go get it. Go get it.
Mhm.
You know,
Yep.
so that's critical. So some of those folks that back in the 20 years ago that didn't feel that I was qualified, you know what? I was probably more qualified for them because I was training every week. Many of our career firefighters are running calls all the time. The training is so limited, so hard to get the callback pay and all that. So, there's a difference there, and I proved it as I went on, and I think I gained the respect.
Yeah. Well, I know like one of the things when I was on my volunteer department, you had to think a little bit more ahead about like, who do I get? Who am I getting on this response? Which,
Oh,
made you stay ahead of where that fire or where that situation was going. Right.
yeah,
Like if it's 1 o'clock, you really had to be situationally aware. Is it a Wednesday? Cause I don't know if Smith's going to come in or not. Cause right. Like you learned, well, Smitty's off on Wednesdays. He's going to be here. Right. Like
yeah.
you
Well,
really have to take that picture.
and you know what, Sam? My big thing is I have a lot of big things, but my big thing when it comes to the volunteer fire service is we have to change the model. We can't go by some of the examples you're going by, that hit or
Mhm.
miss. Can't
Right.
do that. We have to protect the community. So in my district, if I could promote the Union Fire District a little bit, we have duty shifts, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year, all volunteer. We have 8 stations in my district, and so we may have six folks on duty. On a Monday, they'll do the day shift and the night shift as well, and they may be from any combination of those 8 stations. So it might be station 3 has the ladder and the engine manned, but they're coming from all the other stations, which is really good for morale. So
Yeah.
we initiated duty shifts years ago, probably 20 years ago, and we did it just for daytime because daytime response was off. And now we do it 24 hours a day. So our volunteer department is manned 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. So we don't have to worry about who's showing up. We already know we got an engine and perhaps a ladder out
Mhm.
on the first tone, and then the others is just bonus. So we also have we in my own town of 32,000 people. We're fortunate to have our own training ground. We have our own Class A burn building. We have our own, towers and confined space. It's an incredible training ground for a small town. But
Yeah.
we were the only one in the state of Rhode Island that had a burn building. The state finally, maybe 15 years after we built ours, built their first one. So we are a training ground and a breeding ground for career firefighters because we do 1403 live burns all the time.
Yeah.
I,
Probably more than some career departments do around
more
here.
than in my lifetime as of today, because I've tracked every bottle I've ever burned on a cylinder. I have I have used the air on the bottle, not just have it on my back. Burned out those cylinders, 6,969 bottles to date. I,
Wow.
I want to get to be the 7,000 cylinder man.
We
Now,
gotta get you like a running, clock, kinda like, the cheeseburgers at McDonald's or whatever, right? Like, with bottles burned.
I know it equates to over a half a year of my life on air
On
in an
air.
IDLH, over a half a year.
Wow.
If you consider the time I had a pack on, it's more than 1 year of my life that I've had a pack on. Now, we have our own training ground, our own burn building. We were burning twice a week, sometimes 3 times a week, and we were having firefighters come in from all over the state and the region, career firefighters, were because there was no burn building. We were the only act in town, so they were coming in. So I'm training all these firefighters on air all the time. Then we went into the international business. We started training in my little town in Rhode Island, South Kingstown. We we've trained people from all over the country, firefighters from all over the country for live fire burns. It's been an
Wow.
incredible run.
Wow. How did all that get started? Just,
Ah, through the
council?
NVFC.
Yeah, right.
It
Yes.
was.
See?
NVFC is the clearinghouse. The first group that we ever had was a group from Greece in 2010, and they had reached out to the NVFC, and then at the time, Heather Schaefer was the CEO. She connected with me, knowing I had a training ground in burn building, and we were able to make some connections. And we started with that group, and we've had folks from Bahamas, we've had folks from Japan, we had folks from Germany. I mean, the friendships that I have across the world are because of the fire service and the fact that I threw them into live fire. They like to be in live fire. You know that it's
Yeah,
fun.
yeah. It bonds you
And
very much so, right?
I gotta tell you, if you don't mind, I don't know if this is helping or not. Are we on the
Yeah.
right?
This is great.
So my first group that we had from Greece, there were 16 firefighters, um, and one press. They brought their own media person to video and everything. So I had a group after we trained. They came in for a full week of training, and at night we did different, social things and different training ops as well. But by Thursday, we're ready for the first live burn to send them in. I had a crew of 3 Greeks. Demetrius, no, there were 4 of them. Demetrius, and somebody else. I don't remember that other person's name. Demetrius is John in Greece. So I had 3 Demetriuses and someone else, and I'm taking them in on a room and contents fire. And one of them spoke fluent English. The others no English whatsoever. I didn't speak any Greek. So we're all set, ready to go. We get our aim, getting ready, going down, right in the door. We were in about 10 feet, and all of a sudden, chaos broke loose. It's like they're all screaming in Greek, screaming. I'm yelling, and I got a room and contents fire. I'm trying to just have them go and attack. And so I grabbed Demetrius that spoke English. I said, what's going on? What are they yelling? And he couldn't understand me. So I said, back them out. So we went outside. We took our helmets off, got off the air and everything. And I said, what the hell was that, Demetrius? And he said, what, Chief? What do you mean? I said, why was all that yelling? What's going on? And he couldn't connect to it. And then he said, he has an aha moment. And he said, I understand, Chief. If you come to Greece and you go to a coffee shop and there's 2 people here and 2 people here and 2 people here, we all yell at each other. That's how we communicate. I said, well, you're not going to do that here. This is not. I taught them about nonverbal communication. I taught them about being calm and cool and just being able to address the situation we have at hand. But it was a cultural thing, Zam. It was a
Yeah.
cultural thing. And I've come across a number of cultural awareness situations over the years that have you have to relate and understand the differences in order to make connections to learn from that. So I learned from them as much as they learn from me. But
Yeah.
having those opportunities, and it's been just so rewarding. Really
Well,
has.
what a great asset to have for your department. I mean, right. So let's go into recruitment. That's got to help with
Oh
recruitment,
my God. We don't
right?
have a recruitment problem. There is no recruitment problem. What we have is a retention problem because those line officers that are our lieutenants in the volunteer system or captains in some cases, they're inspiring to be career firefighters. We have them for 4, 5, 6 years and they're gone.
Yeah.
You know, so we've got to retrain, retool, get new officers, new, fire instructors because we're burning every week. So there's a lot of responsibility that comes with all this. So we're a breeding ground. And in fact, years ago, we used to do mock interviews for our volunteers to help them get the career jobs in uniforms, and we'd bring in other chiefs, career chiefs and our chiefs, and we would do mock interviews to get them ready. And obviously they got the jobs all over the place because
Yeah.
they burned all the time. They were instructors for live 1403 burns. That's a skill set that you just can't get for some recruit applying for a job. So
Right.
our district name, our guys and gals are all over the place for jobs, but we had to retool. So we don't do the mock interviews anymore. We want them to inspire to their career to be a career firefighter, but we don't do
Right.
the mock
We don't
interview.
want to accelerate the process. You still need to get some years out of them, right?
The Fire Store, equipping protectors with passion. Every decision we make as a company is about you, our customer. We wouldn't be where we are today without you, and we don't take that lightly. We understand that having the right gear can mean the difference between life and death. Our goal is to get you the gear you need, when you need it, at prices you can afford. Visit us at thefirestore.com for everything but the truck, and shop our family of brands, including Streamlight, MSA, Lion, Fleer, and more. Now let's get back to the show.
But recruitment, huge issue but not only the career, but also the volunteer side, right? Like,
Yeah.
what are
When
some of the
you
things that are working that you're seeing?
when you look at recruitment, well, first let me just say this, and this is important for your listeners. Most of them are career, I'm sure. Most are career listening. When you look at recruitment, that should not be the problem. The problem is retention,
Mm.
and that comes down to leadership and management and labor management and all of that. If you have retention, you're not going to have a recruitment problem. But when you don't value your employees or your volunteers, then you lose people. They'll go to another department or something else. So valuing your people and focusing on retention, caring for your own is the most important thing a fire chief can do. Make sure that they are providing the tools, the equipment, and the safety standards and everything else that those troops need, those crews need. And that's the critical piece. So if you do retention right, you don't have a recruitment problem. And I'm going to give you another one of the R's, and you probably are not aware of. It's not just a recruitment retention. There's a third R. And that is especially true in the volunteer ranks. Do you know what the third R is? Recruitment, retention.
And well, somehow recovery comes to mind, but it's the fitness side of me. But
It's replacement.
replacement, okay.
Replacing people like me, succession planning.
Yeah.
If we don't succession planning, and that would be in leadership roles as well in the career departments, getting those emerging leaders to understand how important leadership is. That helps the retention of your folks. And today's youth is a little bit different, and you have to acknowledge that those differences are there, and you have to teach them differently in recruit school because they learn differently, and you have to appreciate their differences. I think of in athletics, in the college athletics, there's the portal. There's no loyalty in the athletics. If you're not happy here, you can put your name in and you can go over here, and you see some of these great athletes in college playing 4 different years in 4 different schools. We see the same thing in Rhode Island. I know I could speak for that in the career departments. Those that have the better pay scales they're doing pretty good in terms of retaining their people. But the low end, they're always moving people along. They're just hiring, training, and then they go into a better paying department. So we need to look at replacing, especially in the volunteer ranks, people like me, and succession planning. And we need to put some time and effort into that. And the emerging leaders they have the potential, and you have to give them the resources and the tools and the equipment to be successful to take over your job.
Yeah.
You're a lieutenant.
Yep.
That
Yep.
next lieutenant, it's you should be working hard to get that next lieutenant ready, or those next lieutenants. And it should be very competitive. The career jobs, when the metros have an opening, used to be thousands of applications. Now they're hundreds, and they're not the strongest hundreds either when you talk to some of the chiefs out there. And when we look at recruitment in the volunteer ranks, we have to think differently. We have to change the model. And I can tell you what we did. I was a retired school teacher. I was the conduit for the junior firefighters. We had years and yearbook pictures, had 20, 25 kids every year. Those kids are now department district deputy chiefs that were in the junior program when I was in high school with them. At the dinner the other night, there were two of them there, and a captain was there, and they were talking about, how they would try to pull the wool over my eyes as a school teacher and sneak out to a fire. They say, "Here comes Quinn, you better get back."
Right. He knows what's going on. Yeah.
So, but when I retired, we lost the conduit. We didn't have the junior firefighter program. And so our numbers went way down in terms of our recruitment, which was always sustained at 20 a year or so. Well, we just implemented in September, and this is what I'm talking about, changing the model. We implemented a firefighter 1-2 program in the high school that they get credit for, and they're coming out certified. They just have to do the JPRs and get the applications in. And so we now will have a conduit of new junior firefighters for a number of years ahead. I think they just enrolled next year's course, or just starting to do that. And our course for that started in September, filled up in 2 weeks. So there's definitely an interest for kids in high school to take a hands-on, and we've got our duty shifts. They go over to the high school, bring the truck, apparatus, whatever, and then there's a lot of hands-on stuff. And our fire chief is teaching the course along with a career and technical educator from the high school. So that partnership, changing the model.
Yes.
You have to look differently, look through a different lens, And
Yeah.
I'm talking to the people that are leaders out there, or potential emerging leaders. You have to change the model, and we don't have a problem. We just need solutions.
Yeah. Well, and like you said, the solution is there. We just have to open our eyes, put the light on it, and apply it and really use it. Right. Like, I mean, you've been a school teacher. You were a school teacher for 40 years, I believe. Right. You said
31 years I did.
31 years, and now you've been in the fire service. So you've seen, how that's changed. You mentioned that they're, a little bit different recruiting strategies that are successful, right? Like, what other big differences are you seeing, or have you seen over that time frame?
Well, I think a big difference for fire instructors to realize is that our new learners, our new recruits, learn differently, and you can't hit them with that PowerPoint, death by PowerPoint. You have to get them actively engaged. I believe in student-centered learning versus the instructor just running it down the pipe, So getting them engaged, and I have what I call a ripping up the lesson plan. So give me a topic, Mayday, okay? Mayday. If you're going to teach Mayday, there's 12 objectives to teaching Mayday. So I type the objectives out, all 12 of them. I number them 1 to 12, and I cut them up into little strips of paper, literally ripping up the lesson plan. I bring the troops outside, say there's 25 of them in that class. We stand around in a circle, and I pass out these slips of paper randomly. And so I'll stand in the middle of the circle, and I'll say, okay, who's got number 1? And they read off number 1 of that Mayday, whatever that first objective is. Now, those 25 students, they could care less about me, but they're going to listen to their peer read off that objective. Okay. And then I'll ask the individual, I say, well, what does that mean to you? And have a little dialogue. And then I'll say, who's got number 2? And they'll read it off. And the focus of that students is all on that number 2 kid, and then I slide into the circle. There's no one in the middle. It's all focused around the circle. I'll guide them from the outside, but I am teaching them in a different format rather than that PowerPoint, but I'm getting the objectives across, and they're picking up on it because they're engaged, it's student centered. So what I'm saying is the learners are different. Um, when I go to a conference or anything that where the firefighters are, the way I judge the presenter is how fast the phones come out. I'll stand in
Yeah.
the side or in the back of the room and I'll look at. They try to hide them, but you could see. And and I know, I understand. A lot of them may be chief officers or they have commitments back home and they have to be connected at home. Okay, I understand that piece. But I could tell when it's really a bad instructor because there's way too many phones out. When I teach the rip it up the lesson plan, never a phone comes out, never, because they're focused on each other and that
Yeah.
learn. So I'm
You
saying,
you might call on them at any moment too, right? Like, right?
oh,
Like,
I was teaching this in Miami last week about, I was teaching the Lavender Ribbon Report, which is on cancer prevention, the
yep,
best
yep.
practice.
Very good report.
And I was looking over here and I was telling this side of the audience that, you know, no one takes out a phone. And I turned around and I said, except you. And only one guy the whole time. There were a lot of people there. One guy had a phone, and I said, "I know it's probably important, so you can continue that." But he put it right away. But that's how I judge a presenter, you know. And my point is, we have to teach differently. We have to use different methods because they learn differently. They're multitaskers. These young kids, it's great. You have to take advantage of that stuff. You know, you have to use the phones because you can do competitions through the phone and surveys through the phone while you're teaching and there's so much you can do, and the power that we have in our hands is incredible. So, Zam, I just see recruiting as challenging, yes, but we have to change the model, and it means changing lots of different things. And sometimes it means changing the leader because that leader is probably, and many times there's two reasons why volunteers in particular leave the fire service. One is time. The time commitment is too much for me to balance. And we have that research through NVFC. It's
Mhm.
empirical research. The second one is leadership. It's a bad leader. They don't value me and I don't have time to waste. So we need to change the leaders that are not good adjusters. They used to be great leaders. And I tell you, I want to make sure you understand this about a volunteer fire chief. I had free PPE to give to all the firefighters and departments in the state of Rhode Island through a grant. And I had one department that did not want to take advantage of it. So I went and met with that chief. He's an excavator. I met him on the job site. He comes down off of the rig and we chatted. Okay. He works 16 hours a day, 6 or 7 days a week. You know what his mailbox with the fire department looks like? It's stacked of stuff. He can't get to that. He's overwhelmed with all of that. And then you got all these emerging technologies into it, and
Mhm.
all this other changes that we've seen in the fire service. You know, that fire chief is so overwhelmed. And so you gotta go out and help the guy because I got PPE for you. All you gotta do is it's a simple application. Let me
Right, right.
do it, you know. But many of those chiefs are overwhelmed because they just don't have the resources. And especially when it comes to the administrative side of running a fire department, volunteer or career. You need to have the resources, the tools, and the equipment. So these are just some stories that I've come across over my
These are
years.
great. Yeah. Well, and your leadership, it's not just the fire service too, right? I think that even stretches into in some, city and county, whatever modules of leadership, right? Like I think it's an issue that's not just that we're not dealing with, but everybody is, right?
Yeah, oh, I know. When you look at, we have to have a better relationship with our elected and appointed officials. You know, we have to have a working relationship, so that they understand the job we do. I mean, we do a great job at what we do on a day in and day out basis. You know, when we roll those rigs, we do the work and it gets done even if we don't have the right resources, it gets done.
Yeah.
Okay, but we need to educate our um, elected and appointed officials that are kind of handling those purse strings and show them that, you know. And I know there's a big change going on in Washington right now, and we don't know where this is all going to flush out.
Right.
You know, but you have to be able to look at the good side, and I think that's what I've always done. And looked at the positive, looked at the purpose and find meaning and how can we get there, and you have to change and adjust and adapt, and we do that every time we make a run. We adapt, plan A, B, C, D, overcome, whatever. you know we do that. That's what we do best. That's probably our best feature. So we have to do that when it comes to managing the department or managing the local or managing the coordination of just the operations. And when you look at the cost of everything in fire, it's really expensive.
Yeah. Yeah.
And how far out, before you can get a new engine in, it's
Yeah, the wait time for apparatus and
two
for
years.
some reason, yeah, it's
2.5 in
crazy.
some cases.
Yeah,
So we have to adjust to that. We have to. But if we don't educate our elected officials and those that fund our budgets, then they've got major tasks to do, that they have to handle all the departments. So we have to be part of that educational process. And as an educator, I believe strongly in sharing information, sharing knowledge, and being very open and transparent in what we do. We're not hiding anything. And so making sure that we provide the information they need to make the right decisions. So that
yeah,
again is important. So the troops that are listening, sometimes it's not easy. You can't just get it, but you need to be part of that solution as well.
yeah. This is awesome stuff. What's probably the best piece of advice you got on leadership?
I think you have to be a collaborator. You have to look through many lenses. You have to know that backstep firefighter. You need to know that paramedic. You need to know that elected official. You need to know those line officers, as they're so critical. You need to know the emerging potential promotions that are there, collaborating with all of that, and being able to have a finger on the pulse. And then strategically, you have to be a strategic planner. You have to be a visionary. You know, who 10 years ago, who would have thought that an EV fire would be so difficult for us? We don't have solutions. You have to be part of the solution. You need to work with the scientists, the researchers, the ULs that are out there, the FRCEs, being able to be on the forefront. It takes time. You need to be a good time manager. There's 1,440 minutes in every day.
Mhm.
What you do with them, it's up to you.
It's up to you. Well, and we appreciate again all the insights, and you've been making the most out of those 1,440 minutes for over 49 years. I'm rounding up because God, you're going to stick around for another 6, and we're going to get to the bottom of the cancer recommendations.
Yeah,
And
think
we're
it's
going to figure that out, Chief. I'm on board. I'm on that mission with you, and I can't thank you enough for all your insights and appreciate your time.
I wanted to just give one more thing, just a bit of advice is it's really important to maintain the juggle factor. You know, there's the sizzle factor, Sam. That sizzle factor is what we're all about in the fire service. And if you don't have that motivation from within and which you do, and when you do your thing, with the health and wellness for firefighters, that's the sizzle factor, in your area. But we need to have a sizzle factor. And if your audience doesn't have a sizzle factor, they got to get one. They're in the fire service. You need a sizzle factor. And then the other one is you have to be able to juggle your life. And that's important because you got to keep the amount of divorce that's out there in the career, folks, is just ridiculous in terms of that number. But you got to balance your life with your family, whatever your faith might be, your fire family, your outside interests, your health and safety. If you don't have the balance and you're not juggling the balls, then you need to learn how to juggle better. And I think I have this little simple report card. As I was a counselor in high school, I give the kids a report card. I say, find 5 areas in your life that matter to you. And one might be school, I hope, but family, okay,
Yep.
friends. Friends usually comes first. Family, school, work or career, and maybe athletics or working out or something. Find 5 areas and then give it a grade every couple of weeks, every month. Where are you at on family? A grade of one, scale 1 to 5. The most you can get is 25 for a high score. Okay. So where are you at on family this week? Just check in with yourself, a quick report card. And I think it's important that all your listeners take that advice and just check in with yourself. What are your 5 areas and how are you doing? And I always look for moving forward. And when I had a 14, I wanted to get to 15. I didn't want to go to 13. And if I was doing something in my family, uh, you saw my family.
Yes, all of them, but they were it was so great. They were there. It's so supportive. It
But
was very good.
when you're away half your life, and I literally am away half my life from my home, your family suffers. So how do you make that a 3 instead of a 2? So just to check in on the juggle of life and all of life's components that you deserve and you believe and deem as important in your life. So I know your number one thing in your life is family, followed by your fitness, and then followed by the fire family. Or I don't know what you are,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
I can
yeah.
say, I hope your family and fitness are near the top for you. I'm guessing. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting that you bring this up. I've over the years have had coaches and mentors, and like I said, I think you're in that category. I've taken a lot from you, and I obviously jotted down more notes today. But that is one thing that I just had my birthday and 51, and I do a 10. I have 10 categories, and I rate them from 1 to 10.
Good, good.
And I do it every 6 months, but I think you've kind of encouraged me to say, hey, look at it maybe every quarter or every month where you can really start to say, okay, what's getting away from me? Right. And
Yeah,
I think that's your whole
that's it.
point is,
Reel it in. And then
yep.
I gotta say this because I usually want to make sure that you bet every shift that you look at that annual physical and how important that is. And I don't even know if you know this, but I participated in a firefighter physical, and my EKG strip showed that I had a depression. Well, I ended up having open heart quadruple bypass surgery because of that firefighter physical. So the importance of the physical and having the right tests is just critical. So I wanted to make sure I say that.
Yeah, and I think that's that right. That transfers into your cancer screen because you had the scare with cancer. You know how effective that can be, and I always love to hear those stories. So people can email me anytime at bettereveryshift@firerescue1.com, and I love to hear these stories because when I go and talk and speak and present, and we have other episodes, that's how we learn in the fire service, right? Hey, this happened to Chief Quinn.
Yeah.
I'm going to go do it. And I think you hit on a really good thing about lessons that you've been taught, lessons that you've learned, and transferring them on to the younger generation. You maybe have to switch that around a little bit so they listen or you keep their attention. But Chief, all these wonderful things that you've brought forth today on the podcast. Thanks again. You're not done. I got two more questions for you though. We call them hot seat questions,
Okay.
and I think one of them, because of your illustrious career, is maybe going to transfer into a lesson we can all take. Is if you had to start from day one over again, what would you do differently?
Uh, I just wrote a book, and it came in on my birthday last on the 24th. So
Okay.
I, I just read that, and there was a similar question that I had written in there, and I really I have been so blessed. I have traveled the world with the fire service, and I'm going to 2 new continents this year that I've never been to. I'm going to Asia, I'm going to Japan, and I'm going to Africa. I'm going to Kenya. So when you ask me what would I do differently, I can't possibly do anything different. I have family, I have the fire service, I have traveled, I have friends, the brotherhood and sisterhood in the fire service. There's nothing that comes close to that. I have just lived a life that is so fulfilling and rewarding. And then you take the response piece into it, where we do every day, and the rewards that come with that. And yeah, we've had a lot of tragedies too, but I would not change a thing because my life has been as fulfilling as possible. There's no way. I just wrote about that in my book, and there's no way I could do that.
When's the book coming out?
It's not coming out. I only wrote it for my sons.
Oh, that's cool. Well, if I can urge you otherwise, maybe through these next 6 years,
I
folks.
might write something, but not right now. I
All
just
right.
wrote this one for my sons. I wanted them to have an oral history project of me and the times in my life that, and they were all lessons learned for them so that they carry, and they're just great parents, fathers, and husbands. So I mean, they are my treasures, and my grandchildren the same. But I wrote this for them so that they can have an appreciation about who their dad is.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, hopefully you can add this link somewhere in there and just say, "Hey, you know what? Like, you're not blowing smoke." I mean, there's a lot of great lessons, not only for them, but for all of us.
Yeah.
Which, one of the things you and I have where we've bonded is, we're constantly trying to look at ways to get a little bit better, trying to improve ourselves, improve our surroundings, and which is the theme of the show. So it
Yeah.
comes back down to the last question I always ask our guests is, Chief, what are you doing right now to get better?
Well, I do my daily. I have to say, I'm committed and been committed for probably 12 or 14 years to 22 push-ups every day. It's I stop my day because of the military and the suicides, and that number 12, 14 years ago was there were 22 suicides in the military service
Every
every
day.
day. And so I try to every day, no matter what, I don't care where I am or whatever, I do my 22 push-ups, and I think of those lost military folks that, and then I also think about the loss that we have in the fire service, and those suicides as well. So I do that every day. I try to eat better, and it's hard when you're on the road a lot, and not going to make an excuse, but I try to. I have a goal, Sam. My goal, and that was when I had the open heart surgery and recovered on that. My goal, and I asked the surgeon if I can get to be 100 years old.
Mm.
That's my goal. So every day I live to do better things to keep forth with that goal to get to 100. Because on the NBC show, the Today Show, they have a Smuckers
Yes.
recognition.
Willard Scott used to read it every day, right? Willard Scott. Yep.
I don't know. I think Al does it now. I'm not
Al
sure.
does it now.
But I want to be on the Smuckers jar. That's my goal. I'm not going
Yep.
to get there unless I improve my mental health, my physical health, my emotional health, and I won't do that unless I keep on checking in with myself and making ways to improve. So it could be a small thing. I'm not going to go to 23 push-ups because I believe in the 22 for a reason. But I ride. I just I like to ride a bike. I like to hike. COVID was the best thing for me in finding the little hiking paths that are right in my own backyard. I had no idea. I have an app wherever I am. I can go hiking.
Mhm.
It's just, it's an incredible opportunity. So start small, baby steps, and build on it. But, you do need to check in on your numbers. You got to know your numbers, and you got to stay connected with those healthcare officials and providers so that you have the right tests. And I'm a firm believer in early detection, early interaction is going to make your lifestyle that much better. When I had that open heart surgery, my surgeon told me, my cardiac people tell me that my brain doesn't talk to my heart. My heart doesn't talk to my brain. I never had a sign or a symptom, but I had a widowmaker in me that I had no idea was happening until I had the firefighter physical. So baby steps, every day, something, check in with yourself, juggle life's balls, and be able to just most importantly, be happy in what you do.
Yeah. Stay balanced. How long ago what was your surgery?
2016,
Okay.
September.
All right.
Yeah.
So,
I wanted to be back on an air pack in 2 months because I attacked it. I was like,
yeah.
attacked. And I had 3 doctors sign off, but the 4th one wouldn't sign off because I had a CDL, a commercial driver's license, and that protocol says 3 months. So 3 months to the day, I was on an air pack. And the chief, I give him my fit for duty letters, and I've not looked back, and I'm not
Good for
going to
you.
look back. So
Awesome.
it can be
Well,
done.
I'm gonna
Early
throw
detection. Early detection.
yeah, and getting your firefighter physical is early detection with cancer. understanding where you're at. I think like I love your survey. Just do a look in the mirror, right?
Yeah.
Like look in the mirror. Am I where I want to be? Am I balanced enough? Where do I need to improve? That's a great lesson that I think is sometimes scary for some of us to start doing that.
And it's hard to ask for help. It's hard. We are
Yep.
tough guys and gals. We're tough, we are that image to hold, and it's okay to ask for help. It's okay. And so make sure you have someone you're connecting with, another firefighter, someone outside the fire service, someone that you can lay on some of the stuff that we get. I'll tell you, I have, you have, we all have those situations that you
Oh yeah.
cannot get rid of. It doesn't go away. Okay, it doesn't go away. And those, I wrote about one of them in my book, and that was about a head-on collision where the mom got killed, and an infant in a car seat. The car seat got flown out of the car about 25 feet, and that infant survived. But that drunk driver killed the mom and affected that child. Those things are hard to get rid of, especially with some of the trauma that we see.
Yep.
So it's okay to ask for help, and you got to have somebody, to walk you through some of the tough times that we face every once in a while. One of them that just you just can't get rid of that image, and we all have a lot of images that we've faced over the
Yeah.
years, and as years go on, there's more and more, and then they start running together, and you got to be able to cope with that. You have to be able to be emotionally strong, but you also have to you have to have a confidant, that person, or someone that you can just share and say, listen, this is affecting me,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you have employee health, and you have all the other resources that are out there, but more importantly is you need someone to really trust.
Yeah. Well, and I think it all comes down to having really good resilient habits. We just had Dr. Zemlock on, and I've had a couple of those calls recently, and we talk about on that podcast. I think it's Dr. Z and Zam part two, but you hit on a lot of the points that we talk about is staying balanced and doing the things every single day. You do your push ups, you do your fitness.
And I
Yep.
gotta say this, I gotta throw this out because it's a pet peeve. The monster drinks and all that stuff. I mean, you gotta reduce that stuff. It's like you can't go there. You got to find a different alternative. I know the shifts are tough, and the sleep deprivation is tough, and everything else, but I'm really concerned about the monster drinks, and even if you can cut back a bit, if you're one of those that, I know.
You're doing 3 or 4. Yeah, drink some more water, get
Yeah,
some
what is
better hydration. Yep, yeah.
this thing? And it's like, I mean,
Well, if
wow.
you really wanna get scared, Google monster drinks and their relationship to, cardiovascular incidents,
I know.
right?
I don't think we have the research, and then I'm not even going to go down the smoking thing or the vaping thing, and then
Yep.
there's these other things, PEDs or whatever. I don't even know what those things are, but the stuff you put in your body, make sure it's legit.
Yes. Well, take care of yourself physically, take care of yourself mentally, take care of your family, stay balanced. I mean, the essence
Take
of
care of each other.
and
Take care
take
of each
care of each other. I think
Honestly, taking care of your own. That those fire chiefs out there, and the leaders, and take care of your troops. They're your most valuable asset. Come on, let's step up and do the right things. We're
yeah.
human beings. Work together.
You nailed it, Chief. I appreciate it. And I'm so glad that you're going to stick around in the fire service. And again, thank you so much for the insights. Thanks. And congrats again on the award. It's very well deserved. And I think anybody who's just listened to this understands why you got that award. And again, for those listening, if you were just listening on a podcast platform, go over our YouTube channel, go to firerescue1.com. You can also send us an email at bettereveryshift@firerescue1.com. Please rate, review the show. If you have questions that we can relay on to Chief Quinn, we would love to do that. Again, email bettereveryshift@firerescue1.com. Most importantly, please share this with someone. Please share this episode and some of our other ones. We cannot do this or can't continue to do this without your support. So we thank you for that. And Chief Quinn, thank you so much for all the insights. There's so many great notes that I have that we're going to try to transfer on. Of course, we'll link to the NVFC website, and hopefully someday we're going to be on here talking about your book. But again, thanks so much for everything.
Yeah, I want to thank Lexipol and Fire Rescue as well, and Janelle, even though she didn't join us today, but thanks, Janelle.
Yes, the commander's always with us. She as I was talking off, behind the scenes, she's prepared an unbelievable kind of background, and she's the one who makes all this possible. So she's listening, appreciative of all your insights. You touched on so many wonderful things. You touched on balance. You touched on, really how to help recruit within the fire service, how to take care of ourselves, how to take care of each other, and the importance of that. Again, your illustrious career, congratulations. And I think you've centered around the mantra that we talk about and how I always close. It's about learning something, doing something, sharing something, and moving something to make you and those around you better every shift. Thanks for joining us, Chief, and thanks for listening, everybody.